The committee in the House of Representatives investigating January 6th is opening this week discussing whether to recommend contempt charges against another associate of former President Trump for not fully complying with its subpoenas. This time, the subject is Mark Meadows, who was White House Chief of Staff. Here to dissect tonight's key committee meeting and other political news are Amy Walter of the Cook Political Report with Amy Walter and Tamara Keith of NPR. And hello to both of you on this Monday night. Very good to see you. So let's talk about this January 6th committee, Tam. They are meeting tonight. It's an evening session they are having. This committee has already gone through the process of finding Steve Bannon in contempt of Congress. They're working on Jeffrey Clark, Justice Department officials. Now comes Mark Meadows. How significantly different or alike is this case?
Well, this is different in some ways because Meadows, before he wasn't cooperating, actually was cooperating and turned over more than 6,000 pages of documents, 2,000 text messages. And in the documents that the committee released ahead of this hearing, they laid out some of what was in those documents, but it's fragmented. There are little bits. There is a message where he says that the National Guard will protect pro-Trump people, but what you're missing is the context, the kind of context that could come from testimony, but he is no longer cooperating. He is invoking executive privilege or invoking former President Trump's executive privilege, which President Biden has said is not a matter that he is concerning himself with. He thinks that privilege should be waived because this is so important. But this is different because Meadows was actually a close advisor to the president at the time, as opposed to Steve Bannon, who was a podcast host.
Right. And Amy, there obviously the legal course we will watch, but there's also the political course here.
There's the legal course, which could drag all the way to the end of next year, and of course that means they basically run out the clock on this hearing. And the political course is one that we spent a lot of time thinking about. But with this issue, like so many, Judy, the battle lines have already been drawn where voters have made their decisions on how they feel about what happened on January 6th, the lead up to January 6th. And it's hard to believe that these hearings are going to change many minds or opinions, regardless of who's subpoenaed or who comes and talks. The other thing that is pretty clear that's going to happen is if Republicans take control of one or both bodies of Congress in the 2022 midterms, this issue, of course, will soon find a way to go away, and we're going to have other hearings on a Biden administration. And so you can understand the cynicism for so many voters. We all listen to these voters who think, you know what, they're just kind of playing games up there. One side does it to the other side comes back. It's more of a battle of retribution than in anything else.
So as the committee members are saying, this is deadly serious. We need to pursue this for all the reasons they've laid out. You're right. The public, many in the public look at this and ask what is really...
What's really behind this?
What's really behind it. Another thing I want to bring up, because of what we've seen from the Supreme Court, Tam, in the last few days, and that is the abortion issue. Always a sensitive issue in American political life, and not to mention the issue itself, the difficult choices that women make. But we're talking about this. You had the Supreme Court arguments on December the 1st, got a lot of attention because the conservative justices seem to make it clear what their thinking is. We will see. But then on Friday, you have the court upholding, for now, the Texas restrictive abortion law, on top of what we've already seen with regard to Mississippi. What does this do to the discussion, the debate around abortion right now in this country?
Well, with the Texas law, this is now going to continue to work its way back to the lower court, working its way through the courts, which means it's going to be in the conversation, especially as that law continues to be in place. The potential for lawsuits with basically private citizens going after people who assist in abortions being performed. If they are performed in that state, there's already been a huge chilling effect on the procedures taking place. I think the other thing to note is that this Mississippi decision is likely to come May, June, somewhere next year, well into what will be full-on election season. This is going to be something that gets discussed, that is going to be very much front of mind when you come into the midterms because of that decision, whatever it ends up being.
And that's on the part of both parties.
Right. It's really unclear what the saliency of this issue is going to be. And even some Democrats are warning that, while it looks on paper like something like a complete overturning of Roe v. Wade would benefit Democrats, in that majorities of Americans say don't overturn Roe v. Wade, that it might energize a Democratic base, that it may not be as sort of front and center as people are assuming. And I look at a place like Texas, where we've been talking about this issue, they've been hearing about this issue in the state of Texas for quite some time. A new poll came out, I think it was last week. Top issue in the state is the border. 33% of voters say that's our top concern. Only 9% picked abortion. And even among Democrats, just 15% picked abortion as their most important issue that they think should be addressed in Texas. For Republicans, almost 2/3 said the border. So even on an issue where, again, it hasn't been decided, as Tam said, it's still making its way through the courts, but it's been discussed a lot. I think the bigger question is, does it get completely overturned, where it's pretty clear, black and white, here's what happened? Or is it like this Texas case where there are sort of caveats and it's much more nuanced? And that's also where the question on how does this cut politically becomes more complicated, because while I think it was like 19% or so of Americans believe in banning abortion totally, the majority of folks are somewhere kind of in the middle. Not keep it to, not have no restrictions on abortion, but also don't restrict it completely. So that's a very challenging ground to try to figure out.
And just quickly, Tam, I mean, the other aspect of the Texas law is this element that involves citizens, having them report on anyone they know who is aiding, abetting, if you will, an abortion. This is something that we are seeing reaction to across the country.
Right, because this is attempting to do an end run around judicial review. And in the dissent, in the Texas decision, you had Supreme Court justices saying, beware what you ask for, because if you take a constitutional right and move it outside of judicial review, or decide that it can't be subject to judicial review, then why wouldn't that happen with other constitutional rights, which is what Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, is now saying he might try to do with gun rights.
And didn't waste very long after that Texas decision to announce it. Tamara Keith, Amy Walter, thank you both.
You're welcome.